Hello friends, I'm Conrad and welcome to Bad Guy Breakdowns, the series where we look at the most iconic villains to grace the silver screen. Today we'll be taking the red pill and waking up in the Wachowskis' dystopian cyber nightmare The Matrix, where we'll most likely be hunted by well-dressed and frighteningly aggressive software avatars called agents, chief among them Hugo Weaving's Agent Smith. Let's get into the villainy. Agent Smith is a guy? I think he's a cop? It's unclear. He might be a Fed. He talks to cops with authority, we know that much.
No, Lieutenant, your men are already dead.
He's part of the reason why I no longer trust the FBI, and let me tell you, the X-Files made that hard to do. In The Matrix, the first thing he does is arrive with his boy squad, tell a cop that he has some police funerals to plan, and then destroy a phone box. As it turns out, he's part of the robot equivalent of the Jets, hunting their very own set of sharks in the form of Morpheus and his team of grubby, burlap sack-wearing humans. They've escaped a simulation created by the robot overlords of Earth called the Matrix that is designed to keep humans docile and unaware and spend their time attempting to free the minds of those who might be able to help them fight back against the machines. The next friendly face due to wake up in post-war Earth? A hacker called Neo. He has a cushy job in a very green office and presumably spends his days plotting the downfall of capitalism. Good for you, Neo. Unfortunately for Morpheus and the gang, no matter how many warnings they shout over dance remixes of Rob Zombie songs in nightclubs, Neo isn't quite ready to take the leap into the brave new world. And like in all good movies, we get right down to brass tacks in The Matrix, introducing Neo to the man program thing that will be his primary antagonist for the entire trilogy nice and early. He's offered a pretty sweet deal to turn on his soon-to-be friend, but rejects it in favour of giving Smith some sass, which honestly is just childish. You're just being a child, Mr. Anderson, alright? Alright? A child. Why don't you just grow up? Now, I will admit that Agent Smith does sort of jump from 1 to 10 here when he responds to Neo's backchat by manipulating the simulation to seal his mouth shut before inserting a horrific robot bug tracker device thing into his belly button. But you have to set an example when it comes to these would-be heroes, or else who knows what kind of shit they're going to get up to. As it turns out, this was all pointless anyway, as Neo is immediately snatched off the street by Trinity, APOC and Switch and taken to meet Morpheus, who gives him a choice of pills. One will wake him up to the realities of current human existence, the other will send him back to sleep and wipe his knowledge of the Matrix. Neo chooses poorly and effectively enters into direct conflict with the machines from this point on, waking up in a pod filled with what is later suggested to be recycled human body parts, but what looks like lube, and what I guess is a respirator down his throat. He's surrounded by a sea of unconscious humans in identical pods, being farmed for their energy. Say what you want about the machines, but they figured out sustainable energy far quicker and with far less fuss than we did, so who's the real monster? Anyway, Neo has to go through some pretty rigorous physio and acupuncture to get his body used to being awake, and in the meantime is introduced to Morpheus's crew. Trinity, Cypher, Switch, APOC, Tank, Dozer and Mouse. They all hang out aboard the Nebuchadnezzar, a hovercraft named after the most powerful king of Babylon, a man who built an empire. The symbolism shouldn't be too hard to figure out there, given Morpheus's goal is to build a new home for humanity. But I suspect this is as deep as the metaphor goes, because honestly, if you start to tug at the threads of it, you realise that he was also an enormous enemy of the Jewish people, destroying the kingdom of Judah and its capital Jerusalem, which would sort of indirectly make him an enemy of Jesus, and Neo is nothing in this trilogy if not a Christ analogue. Okay, now we're done talking about metaphors, let's instead talk about people beating the shit out of each other, which means talking about Yuen Woo-ping, a director, actor and stunt coordinator who is probably more responsible than any other single person for The Matrix being fucking awesome. This is going to require a quick history lesson, so bear with me. Yuen Woo-ping made his name as a director in Hong Kong in the late 70s. making some of the earliest Jackie Chan movies like Drunken Master and Snake in the Eagle's Shadow. And it should come as no surprise that a guy who made movies with Jackie Chan was pretty damn good at fight and stunt choreography. And Wu Ping became a prolific contributor to the Hong Kong action scene of the 70s, 80s and 90s as a result, making movies that the Wachowskis absolutely loved, like Jet Li's Fist of Legend in 1994. So much in fact that they brought Wu Ping on board as the fight choreographer for all three Matrix movies, his first Hollywood productions. This is significant because of what it meant for the style of action that will be depicted in The Matrix. It's hard to do, but if you can cast your mind back to the heady days of pre-Matrix 1998, action scenes didn't really look like this. Look at the balletic elegance of wuxia-inspired wire fighting, mixed with legit-looking close-quarters fight scenes shot in long takes to accentuate rather than hide the choreography, and then add on to that the focus on a mixture of visceral gunplay and hand-to-hand, an influence from another Hong Kong director who had made his move to Hollywood only shortly before this, John Woo. Essentially, what you're seeing in The Matrix is a high-budget attempt to write a love letter to the distinct elements of Hong Kong martial arts cinema, mixed with an innovative techno-punk aesthetic and using state-of-the-art camera techniques like the revolving shots. In short, what you're getting here is something no one had ever seen before, and Yuen Wu Ping, along with the Wachowskis, was at the heart of it. So when Neo jacks into the secure simulation aboard the Nebuchadnezzar for the first time and ends up fighting Morpheus, the enormous intake of breath you can hear as Western action cinema collectively realised this was the kind of fight scene it was going to copy or parody for the next 10 to 15 years starts to make sense. And I mean, look at it. How can you not love this? I'm no martial artist, but there's a lot of different styles in there. Kung Fu, Wing Chun, The Rock. Not to mention the fact that Wu Ping's influence on Western cinema is still felt today. Those long takes and gun-focused close-quarters combat of John Wick, that's because Chad Stahelski directs those movies, a guy who worked as Keanu Reeves' stunt double on, you guessed it, the Matrix films. Anyway, that's enough about those losers. Let's catch up with our boy Smith, who takes Cypher out for a free lunch. He agrees to give up Morpheus in exchange for being reinserted into the Matrix as a rich actor, choosing ignorant bliss over the difficult truth of the world he actually lives in. Boy, that theme just keeps aging better and better, doesn't it? Also, I feel like Joe Pantoliano should be questioned about this, just to, make sure we're not all living in a simulation. But either way, as luck would have it, Neo and the gang are back in Greensville, USA, as they escort him to go and see the Oracle, an old lady who can supposedly confirm whether he is in fact the one or not. What better time to spring a trap and cut the human resistance off at the knees? Morpheus is all smiles, confident that Neo will be told exactly what he needs to hear to awaken his inner badass. Although at this point the audience thinks that he's happy because the Oracle is just going to take one look at Neo and say, "Damn, yep, that's a one alright, so long kid!" She doesn't do that though, she gives him some bad news, offers him some cryptic advice and a cookie before sending him on his merry way, with one final warning that at some point he's going to have to choose between his own life and that of Morpheus. The gang head back to a hardline so they can jack out of the Matrix and get back to a life of rough fabrics and gruel. But oh no, those pesky agents have found them. Thanks, Cypher! Their attempt to sneak out in the walls of the building is foiled when Cypher seizes on an opportunity to sneeze and give the game away, forcing Morpheus to tangle with Agent Smith and get his shit just absolutely rocked as he tries to buy the rest of the gang time. Just as an aside, I love in fight scenes when someone throws a strike which misses and it absolutely decimates a brick wall or some other hard surface. It really helps to capture the sense of how hard they're hitting each other. In this case, Morpheus' head is confirmed to be harder than both bricks and porcelain. It was a good effort, buddy. You'll get him next time. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew has made a beeline for the basement where they seemingly make good their escape behind Apoc and Switch laying down some covering fire of the sideways Uzi variety. We'll cover what happens next in more detail in the kill count, but suffice to say that Morpheus' plan to get his team out safely doesn't go super well. He's captured, and the next time he runs into his gang, he'll probably notice that the head count has dropped dramatically.
Not like this.
Thanks again, Cypher.
A short while later, Neo is busy doubting himself while Trinity and Tank weigh up the pros and cons of pulling the plug on Morpheus, and Agent Smith really gets a chance to strut his stuff as he attempts to persuade his captive into revealing the location of Zion, the last human city. He reveals a sense of disgust for the way that humans consume all resources around them, calling them a virus.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
For finally letting something slip of his own motivations. He needs to get out of the Matrix. He has developed a sense of awareness of his surroundings and fears that he will be stuck here for all time, or at least until humanity is destroyed.
This is important because it explains Smith's zeal for the destruction of humanity. For their part, neither Jones nor Brown, the other two agents, seem to have reached this level of introspection and are suspicious of Smith's methods when they re-enter the room. Then the sprinklers go off and the agents of course obey the correct fire safety protocols, which in this case means teleporting to the roof and shooting at the people in leather. Okay, but let's pause there for a sec, because there is literally no way I'm making a video on The Matrix and not including the scene prior to this, whether it has any of our villains in it or not. How did Neo and Trinity get here?
Carry, keys, loose change. Holy shit!
Holy shit, okay. Yeah, that was just action cinema being reinvented before our very eyes, no biggie, no big deal. Let's go back and see how Agent Jones is getting on. So Neo loses the cyberpunk dance-off and is at risk of being served when... you know what, I'm actually just going to abandon this metaphor before it gets out of hand. Trinity shoots Jones in the head and they steal a helicopter.
Dodge this.
No.
Yep, afraid so. I hope Agent Smith and Brown enjoy the reincarnation process because they both just got absolutely smoked by Neo and a minigun. So what we've got here is a good old-fashioned action set piece. Neo blows away the agents, then catches Morpheus in midair when he realises that his mentor won't make the jump to the helicopter. Trinity is forced to ditch the chopper after Smith puts a few extra speed holes in its fuel tank, with Neo bracing himself to take her weight on the cable he is tied to. The helicopter crashes into an office building, creating a shockwave that breaks every window in the vicinity and explodes, sending Trinity swinging across the street and smashing into the camera. When you look up the dictionary definition of how to shoot an action scene, this should be what you see. It is capital P perfect. Anyway, that's enough fawning over the Wachowskis for the moment. We'll probably get back to that when we look at the final showdown between Neo and Agent Smith. But for now, it's enough for me to be the bigger man and acknowledge that Morpheus, Trinity, and eventually Neo managed to escape the clutches of the agents via various dirty tricks, and the movie ends with Smith seemingly dead, and our hero sending out a broadcast to all remaining agents telling them that he's here to change the world while Rage Against the Machine plays over the credits. And that's The Matrix. It's both the beginning of a trilogy and also pretty competently self-contained. It reinvented a genre of cinema, and I think it's fair to say that Agent Smith more than carried his own weight as its main villain. But ultimately, the agents did fail, as hard as it is for us bad guy fans to admit it. Let's have a look and see if they could have done anything differently. Alright, let's see what we're working with here. This plan honestly doesn't look too bad. Get a mole in Morpheus's crew by promising them blissful ignorance. Seriously, good job on doing this one, it's the hardest part of the whole thing. Capture high-ranking member of said crew. Find out location of last human city. Destroy Zion. This might be harder than you're imagining. Global domination. Okay, so right off the bat I can see a problem here. You need to ask yourself what you personally are hoping to achieve here. Brown and Jones? They're happy to pump Morpheus for info, hand it off to their superiors, and enjoy a week off in the robot equivalent of Hawaii, or a nice watch, or whatever robot cops give each other for a job well done. But Smith, you want out. Is waiting on the conclusion of the last great war for Earth really something you see being resolved quickly? Even if the robots know where Zion is, it's not like they're going to give it up without a fight. All I'm saying is that this plan would be just fine if your goal was to learn the location of Zion and get a pat on the back from your boss, but your expectations are way too high. This is the equivalent of me finally taking my driving test with the expectation of becoming a world champion in Formula 1 in my late 30s. I mean, it might happen, but it's pretty unlikely and definitely won't be quick. Agent Smith, I respect the ambition, I really do, but you could do with taking a few leaves out of your co-workers' books. Speaking of which... Agent Brown is introduced riding shotgun as their car pulls up in the opening scene, and this tells us an enormous amount about the power dynamic between the three of them. He's not viewed as a peasant whose only role is driving like Agent Jones, but he clearly wants to be close to the radio to have some control over the music they listen to. He's a creative soul who allows Agent Smith to take the more prestigious backseat because he values art over status. Unfortunately, reviewing the latest Churches album is all he brings to the table, really. His contributions aside from this amount to running after Trinity before missing a bunch of easy shots, doing the same thing for Neo, and joining in the agents' fun little game of finishing each other's... You see, they finish each other's... Oh, God damn it, just roll the clip.
Unless they're dead. In either case.
We have no choice but to continue as planned.
Look, whatever. Agent Brown sucks, he's alive at the end of the movie. Agent Jones is both the comic relief and the sex appeal of The Matrix, bringing both excellent comedic timing and a smouldering sensuality to his performance. And it's a good thing too, because all the other agents seem to hate him. He's forced to drive them around constantly, and when there's a problem during the Morpheus interrogation, they send him upstairs to deal with it alone, clearly hoping that he'll die and rid them all of his incessant jokes. Unfortunately for Smith and Brown, despite Trinity giving Jones a budget craniotomy and leaving him humiliated after an excellent one-liner, he is also still alive at the Matrix's conclusion. Imagine betraying all of humanity and all you ask for in return is the chance to go to sleep and wake up as Joe Pantoliano. Imagine that. Imagine that. And listen, I'm not coming after Joe here. I'm just saying that if the very summit of your aspirations in life amount to a comedic turn in Bad Boys, you fucked up. No superpowers, no endless wealth, just a competent character actor who turns up whenever someone needs an Italian. I'll give him this though, he sure did kill a lot of people. APOC and Switch both eat it in completely unsatisfying fashion, while Cypher gets creepy with Trinity's sleeping body, followed by Tank and Dozer getting fried. Although, as it turns out, Tank wasn't quite as dead as we all thought, and he returns the favour for killing his brother with a blast of electricity that sends Cypher through some pipes and straight to hell where he belongs. Okay, so Cypher got a few kills under his belt, and I've ragged on Agents Brown and Jones's competencies, but let's really drill into this and see how much damage the bad guys actually did in this one. Okay, a disclaimer first. We are 4 videos into this series now, and something has struck me. There are lots of great villains who never kill anyone because they get other people to do the killing for them. And that means we'll miss out on a lot of great action. So here's the deal. From now on, I'm going to count all kills done in the villain's name under the kill count, even if they didn't pull the trigger, so to speak. And more specifically, for this movie, we need to talk about what constitutes a kill. Is a kill of a human in the Matrix something we're going to count? And are agents killing people when they teleport into their bodies? If you think about it, we see later that damage done to the main characters in the Matrix also kills them in the real world, so it stands to reason that when an agent inhabits or otherwise kills a random human, then that human's real body also dies in whatever energy pod it's currently sitting in. So for the purposes of this video, yes, a kill in the Matrix counts, and yes, teleporting into people is a kill. We start things off fairly routinely as Agent Smith inhabits the body of a truck driver to try and run down Trinity. Once Cypher's betrayal plan is enacted, we see Mouse gunned down by cops, and after the traitor escapes the Matrix, he sets to work on the rest of the crew, wounding Tank and then frying Dozer with an electricity gun, before pulling the plugs on APOC and Switch while monologuing. During the rescue sequence, Agent Jones steals the body of a helicopter pilot rather than just take the goddamn elevator to the roof. Then, after Neo and Trinity kill all 3 of the agents, we see them return by assuming the bodies of 3 cops in the hallway. And then, during the final confrontation, Agent Smith inhabits the body of a homeless man in a subway, is smushed by a train and forced to occupy some poor commuter, jumps into the body of a parent with their child in a marketplace, then almost kills Neo with a butcher's knife after warping into an old lady. He finally catches up with Neo and puts just a whole bunch of bullets into him. And yes, I am counting it, even though he comes back. He's flatlining here, that means he's dead in movie speak.
He's gone.
See, I told you. And that makes it 14 kills for the bad guys in this movie. A high number for sure, and a worrying amount of collateral kills in there too. Lots of random people just standing around getting killed for no reason. Almost as if the agents don't really respect the sanctity of human life. Unfortunately for them, human life finds an answer in the form of Neo. Let's check out the big final clash between him and Agent Smith. I'll be the first to acknowledge that Neo did a good job. He rescued Morpheus, got his gang out of there, and saved humanity, or at least prolonged their existence a little longer. And when he decides against running and stands up to our boy Smith in the subway, it's hard not to admire the little tyke, even if we all know he is hopelessly mismatched. He doesn't stand a chance, in fact. It's really quite unfair. But ultimately, you can only beat the team put in front of you, and Neo is, unfortunately for him, the underdog who's in for an embarrassing afternoon in this metaphor. It's not Smith's fault that the deck is stacked in his favour. The two go at it, and credit where it's due, Neo manages to break Smith's sunglasses with a crescent kick, which only serves in pissing Agent Smith off.
Those were $500 sunglasses, asshole.
For every blow Neo lands, Smith lands more, and each strike is absolutely devastating. For all his heart and unwise bravado, there just doesn't seem to be much that Neo can do against the onslaught. The fight spills onto the tracks, and Smith makes the smart decision to hold Neo in place in front of an oncoming train, knowing that one of them can resurrect and the other cannot. Unfortunately, this is the end of the line for the plucky hacker. No, that's not how that was supposed to go. We're not counting that as a win. Alright, well he's back anyway, no big deal, it's fine. Neo makes a break for it and is pursued through the streets by all 3 agents, honouring the ancient tradition of all foot chases in movies requiring that those involved run through a fruit and veg market so that someone can shoot a watermelon. The chase proceeds through numerous apartment buildings. Oh, and while this is happening, robotic squid monsters are destroying the Nebuchadnezzar, by the way, before Neo finally gets to the room with the hardline he needs, but oops, there's Agent Smith in the way. Sorry Neo, thanks for playing, you're dead now. And the movie ends with the Nebuchadnezzar destroyed and Neo dead in a hallway somewhere. Or at least it would if I had my way, but unfortunately, Neo realises that his name is an anagram of 1, just in time to resurrect, stop a bunch of bullets with his mind, make an absolute fool out of Smith in hand-to-hand combat, before jumping into his chest and exploding him from the inside out. Brown and Jones run, Neo grabs the hardline and wakes up, and Morpheus fires off the EMP to save the ship. All in all, a bad day for the bad guys. So that's Agent Smith. He was presented as a constant existential threat to the good guys, dressed well, was performed with just the right amount of subtle menace by Hugo Weaving, and, spoiler alert, wouldn't stay dead for too long. Although The Matrix is loved and remembered more for what it did for action cinema as a whole, I think if you change Smith, you lose a significant amount of what makes this movie work. And for that reason, I love him as a villain, and honestly, if you're going to die, dying to a reality-altering superhuman isn't a bad way to go. That's going to do it for us this time on Bad Guy Breakdowns. Thank you for joining us. If you could leave a like, that'd be much appreciated as it really does help. And make sure to join us in the new year, where we're going to be spending some time in Neo Tokyo, looking at Akira and its reluctant villain Tetsuo Shima. Until then, I've been Conrad, and I'll see you next time.